Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Welcome to another edition of our daily-ish devotionals. I am Pastor Brian, and I thank you for joining me again today, and I think we've got a pretty good one. The title of the chapter in What If Jesus Was Serious by Skye Jethani. Again, I apologize if I'm not saying that name right. If Jesus was serious, then we will make room to cry. Talk a little bit about funerals and crying and mourning and all that stuff. We'll get into that a little bit, but it's a good one. First, our 80s movie of the day, Stripes. Great movie. Now, let me say this. As I'm going through these movies, always in the back of my mind, I think, is that a movie appropriate for today? Does it talk about or depict some people in less than flattering situations? Is it politically correct? Is it even appropriate? Some of those answers could all be no if you look at it from today, but I'm a firm believer the film was made in the early 80s. And we can evolve and we can learn and think, all right, we probably won't do that today. That's not appropriate to be done and made today. But I think it's still okay to look back and watch and laugh at old movies. I don't know. I'm going to. And that's why I recommend them. I think they're fun. This one, definitely not appropriate for younger audiences, but man, anything with John Candy and Bill Murray is a movie that I'm going to watch. So, Stripes. Army training, sir. And of course, the Frankenstein instead of the frankincense. We're running a little low on Bible puns when we start to do the ones on the three kings and the nativity scenes. Today's chapter, if Jesus was serious, then we'll make room to cry. The author of the book talks about, he read a book on how if you're to be a pastor of a church, then you should call your weekend gatherings celebrations. They should always be upbeat and energetic and focused on the victorious Christian life. Dog, that deep sigh was not approved. My mutt's in here. And he just gave this loud, deep sigh like he's bored to death by what I'm talking about. Him and I are going to go around someday. Back to the story. He says, the problem with the nonstop celebration model, apart from being inauthentic, is that it ignores examples found in the Bible. The book of Psalms served as a prayer book and worship liturgy for God's ancient people. It's the prayer book that Jesus and his disciples would have used in their worship. It includes many songs of celebration, but there are even more prayers of lament, complaint, and even cries for justice. How long, O Lord, is a frequent prayer in the Psalms. It shows that the human and divine relationship has many dimensions. Ancient worship, it seems, could be celebratory, angry, mournful, repentant, contemplative. Jesus said, blessed are those who mourn. He addresses those who experience grief. It also includes others who mourn with them. I'll close with what Skye says. We must not fall into the delusion that God has called us to be a perpetual state of ever-increasing happiness. We must not fall into the delusion that God has called us to a perpetual state of ever-increasing happiness. Jesus reminds us that God is also with us when we mourn, because this is a broken world. Mourning is to be expected. Lots to unpack there. But do you ever get into that delusional thinking that if you're a Christian, you should never be sad? I think about that when I talk with families around funerals. And as I get more and more into the funeral business and seeing where funerals are becoming an inconvenience for people. Death is an inconvenience. Yeah, death is an inconvenience. But it's more like they don't even want to be sad. Let's make this a celebration of their life and let's make it be happy. That's okay. That serves its purpose. But we also need to cry and to mourn the loss of a loved one. Right? I mean, that is what the funeral process is for. From picking out the clothes that your loved one is going to wear in the casket to the music played or the lunch you're going to have afterwards. That's all part of a process that begins our healthy grieving, helps us move along. But we want to skip that because it's hard and because it's inconvenient to do it on a weekday. Let's do it when we don't have to take time off work or anything like that, because we seem to devalue that. We seem to want to avoid being sad or frustrated or scared or anxious at all costs. when all it simply means is we're human. Now, if those scared or anxious or frustrated or sad or angry thoughts start to rule our lives and they become the norm instead of the exception, or instead of the normal emotional progress, then we maybe need to seek help. And that's not a sign of weakness, that's a sign of strength, seeking help. But why do we skip the mourning or the grieving, or we think we need to be perpetually happy? Right? If someone comes to you and says, my day has been rotten, hopefully our first response is to listen and not, well, you think your day has been rotten. Listen to what I've been through. Ever sat in a meeting room full of pastors? If one pastor tells a story about this congregant or organist or pianist that they can't deal with, and the next pastor, well, they got a better story. And the next pastor, they've got a different story. And all of a sudden it becomes a vent session, which I suppose is healthy in the right company, as pastors are. But we have a tendency to want to say, well, you think you got a bad, check this out. Instead of just, yeah, it's frustrating now, you're angry now, you're sad now, you're anxious. That's okay. Does it make you a negative person? It makes you human. Now, we all know those people where all they do is complain, right? Nothing is ever good enough. Something bad has always happened. Their job is the worst. Everything else is the worst. I'm going to say those are negative people, where it's always something the matter with them. Always something to complain about. And then you have the people that are always positive, right? You never see them angry or frustrated or mad. You know that's a fake, right? We talked about that the other time with Facebook, presenting the highlight reel and not being a true representation of life. How do we be more authentic? How do we be more authentic with God? Talk to God about your frustrations. Hey, you haven't answered this prayer yet. Hey, why'd you let this happen? Why is it taking you so long for you to do something about this? I still don't have a sense of where you want me to go or what you want me to do. Come on, God, this is getting frustrated. Or being downright angry. She just went through all those emotions. Angry, frustrated, scared, abandoned. Prayed to God about it. It's okay. God is big enough to take your anger, your sadness, your frustration. We just have to remember that we can't dwell there. Once we become dwelling on those emotions, then we need to keep help. But it's okay to cry. Jesus said, blessed are those who mourn. It's okay to be sad on the death of a loved one. But a powerful message, especially in times like now, where you can run that gamut of emotions a million times during the day. Go from feeling great to feeling sad to feeling good again to feeling frustrated 100 times in the same day, and it's okay. Jesus said it's okay to be sad. It's okay. Blessed are those who mourn. So what gives you permission, I guess, or it's okay not to be okay. I have to have everything figured out all the time. Amen. Storm, was that okay for you? Amen.